Welcome back to another episode of Catching Up, where we catch up with some of your favorite past professional athletes. I'm Scott McCarran, along with John Henry Mills. And today we are talking with a good friend of yours from your days with the Oilers.
Yes, sir. Roderick Lewis. We got him on the line right now. Roderick Lewis, how you doing right now, son?
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you. Good to hear your voice also.
So, Rod, thanks so much for joining us today. To give a little background to our listeners, you grew up in the Dallas area, played college ball at University of Arizona, spent several seasons with the Oilers, including when the team moved to Tennessee. So then bring us up to speed on what you're up to now.
Yes.
Well, for the last 25 years, I've owned my own asset recovery and logistics company. So that's what I've been doing in the Dallas area. I started out as just a small tow truck company after football investment. And 25 years later, I had no idea I would be at the size I am now. But, it's been a blessing,
That's
a
awesome.
lot of hard work and, just pushing along. That's all.
Definitely a blessing. I know for a fact that I know a couple of times where he called me a couple of times and said, "Hey, Mills, I got a car down there at down in Houston. Can you go pick it up for me?" And I picked it up for him at least 2 or 3 times, and I brought him in some income. I still haven't got my paycheck yet.
Maybe one day. Awesome.
Yeah, you had to call HR.
Call HR. Good call. Good call.
So what we like to do next is our little 5-question segment where we throw some questions at you, and you let us know what you think about that. So you got the first one for us.
All right, Rod. Tell me something. What was the most fun as far as being around me as a player, friend, confidant? Like, what was the most fun being around me?
First of all, the most fun thing about being on you is, number one is going to work every morning. We used to carpool every morning going to work.
Yes, that is true.
And and there was never a dull day with John Henry. But I'll tell you, the one of the most fondest memories I have is one of the first times I actually, got to his house that morning to go to work, and I was like, "Man, you got something to drink?" He was like,
Remember this?
he said, "Check the refrigerator," and then I was like, "Okay." So I opened the refrigerator, and there's nothing but Gatorades, candy, and Snickers. And I said, "Where'd you get all this from?" He said, "Oh, from the plane." To kind of give you a backstory, we used to get all the leftover. He used to take all the leftover drinks from the airplanes after the flights, and I was like, "You got all this for the plane?" He said, "Yeah, they gave it to me. It's free."
So what's funny about that, and I have a feeling this is going to become a reoccurring thing. We started off this whole podcast with me just interviewing John Henry, and he mentioned that story to a T. Just went into great detail on how, when you go on the planes, there's just a ton of food waiting for you, and he'd always wait in the back till everyone got off and walk through the aisles, and
Exactly.
He told us all about the refrigerator. That's good stuff.
Yes.
So, Rod, what's your favorite memory from when you played?
Oh, there can be so many. Favorite memory from when I played. I have a lot of fond ones, but I guess the one that's dearest to me is my very first catch in the NFL. Remember, we were playing Kansas City in a preseason game, and after I caught the ball, I come back to the huddle, and one of our oldest and most dearest veterans, and probably the most decorated guy I've ever been around, Bruce Matthews, just looks up at me in the huddle and says, "Nice catch, Rook." And for him to say that, it was like, okay, I guess a welcoming, if you will, because Bruce doesn't talk to many people. At least at that point, he didn't talk to many people, especially if you're a rookie. I mean, you'd be lucky to get a couple words in edgewise. And the fact that he acknowledged that, I guess I did something right, it just, just kind of gave me okay, I can go ahead and breathe and keep playing now.
Yeah, that's a great story.
So, Rod, so moving on to our third question. So what was one of the most favorite cities as a visitor to play in, and what stadium, I would say, and why?
Well, I still got to give that. It's a toss up between my first Monday night game and Pittsburgh and Kansas City, and I think I got to give the nod to Kansas City because of their flyover when they do the national anthem. And where they sung the national anthem, and it gets to the point where it says, "And the home of the," and then they say,
cheese.
and then right at the exact same time, that's when they had the flyover with the Jets, and the whole thing just kind of just shocks your whole body. If you're not prepared for it, it's an experience.
Definitely experience.
Yeah, that's a cool one. I always enjoyed the flyovers when we had them when I was working at the Texans. So, least favorite city to play in as a visitor?
Cleveland, at least the old Cleveland Stadium for sure.
Oh yeah.
What was it? Was it the weather or was it the stadium?
Well, number it's a combination of sorts. But number one, before we even got there, they told us, as young rookies, they said, when you get there, keep your helmet on if you're in the end zone. And I was like, didn't understand why, but during the game, once we scored, I mean, you see snowballs, and the snowballs were filled with batteries, but you didn't know they were filled with batteries till they actually hit you. So you might get one in the shoulder or in the helmet, and if one hits your helmet, it's like, ding! It's like you just like, hold on, that's supposed to be snow, but it. Yeah, and there's no celebrating. I guarantee you that.
Definitely no celebrating.
And that was the dog pound, obviously.
Oh yes. Very ruthless, very cold. So Rod, just going back and thinking, I know you talked about Bruce Matthews and whatnot. What was one of the most inspirational persons or people that you've been around with, and why?
All right. Well, that could start with you, but since you're the host of the show, I won't just give you that and everything. But because we got history for real,
right?
So most inspirational people that I was ever around. That's a tough one because there's so many.
Yeah, throw out some names. It doesn't have to be just one.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I remember working out with. I remember working out with when I first got there with Chris Dishman, and that was like a off-season workout. And Darryl Lewis and I went to school together at Arizona. So when I got there, I was like, okay, who y'all working out with? And so we got down there with Chris Dishman, and it just seemed like when I first met him, he was like one of the first teammates outside of the facilities that I met. And just having to have a one-on-one, just talking conversation. And he just seemed like he was extremely in shape all the time. I mean, you just couldn't catch him off his game, and I just was marveled at that. And even though he played a different position than myself, just the fact that he had been in the league so long and he was so in shape and just seemed like he was on top of his game just kind of gave me another level to pay attention to and say, okay, this is where I've got to be if I want to be successful.
Good.
That's awesome. Well, now's our segment of story time.
Correct.
Now, you already sort of touched on it with going over to the house and finding the leftover goodies. Any other good stories that you guys have?
Yeah, I don't know. He probably can come up with something. Go ahead, Rod.
I've got plenty with this guy. But actually, football stories, well, I tell you, this guy, believe it or not, is one of the strongest pound-for-pound gentlemen I've ever known in my life. And he was able to put that on display early in my career. I think it might have been my first or second year. I'm not sure, but I wasn't a huge weight room guy, but he was. And one of the unwritten rules of our weight room was the first person that got there, got the chance to put the music on. Well, we got there one morning right about the time, this other guy named Mike Teeter showed up, and he had his, music on, but we actually got in there before him. No, actually, no. Let me flip it. We turned our music on, but then he comes and changes it.
Yes, exactly what happened. Yes.
He changes our music, but then he tries to pull the old guy card, but then Skills comes in and says, "Hey, we were here first. Our music is first." So, then it becomes a little testosterone battle, if you will. And so then they said, well, we're going to settle it over lift weights. So he was like, well, what are you going to do? He said, and John Henry turns to him and he says, what you want to do? He said, put it on the bench press. And it was like, I'm sitting there like, Now you got to know the backstory behind Mike Teeter. Mike Teeter was a one muscle, just one huge muscle. Defensive lineman, just huge. And so I'm looking at John Henry, linebacker, undersized linebacker, a fullback, just super in shape. But I'm like, are you talking about bench press? But I said, let me keep my mouth shut. I'm a young guy. I don't know. Well, just for the short story version, they started off with about 315, and in about maybe 3 or 4 sets later, real quick, it was up about 550 or so, and then Teeter had to tap out, and I can only tell you how high the music got turned up after that, and it was our music.
All right, so Rod, and all of that being said, I mean, we're getting older, so it might not have been that much weight. It was only like 475. But anyway, it was. Tell them what happened the very next day when we came into work. What was in my locker?
Oh, the drug test.
Yes. So
what was it?
Oh, so I had a pink slip in my locker.
Drug test.
They said, "Hey, you gotta go see the trainer."
Yeah, you go drug test.
I go, "Okay, why?" Rod goes, "Rod, what is this? I gotta go see the trainer for a piss test." And so he was, we're walking towards the training room, and he goes, "Hey, you remember? You beat Mike Teeter yesterday in that bench press. They think you on that stuff. You on steroids. That's what they think."
The very next day.
Oh. It was so funny. So I go in, and I said, "Hey, I was here. I got this letter in my locker. What I need to do?" He said, "Well, you have to take a urine test." I go, "Okay. Where do I go?" And they go, "Hey, do you need to take some time? Do you need to go maybe drink some more water or something?" I said, "No, I'm ready."
Yeah, they were trying to give him a hint,
because I think this is. I mean, being out of it and watching certain guys go through this process. I remember, hey, they take some time. They may go back in their locker room, may take some, drink some Gatorade or some, cranberry juice or something additive to kind of dilute whatever it may be so it wouldn't show. So when I came in and said, "Hey, I haven't used the restroom yet. I got to go." "You sure you don't need any time?" I go, "I'm sure. I got to go right now." They go, "Are you sure?" And I go, "I gotta go." And so I went in, used the restroom, and came back out. Thank y'all, and went straight back in the weight room, started lifting again and whatnot. But it was quite funny. So that is true.
I mean, the first thing that I was thinking was this sort of like what we see in the movies, like a retaliation thing, like a fake pink slip?
Yeah, it was a true pink slip, because they really thought like, "Hey, you just beat the strongest man on the team in a bench press contest. What's going on?"
Yeah.
True story.
Good stuff. So, any other stories that you can think of, Rod, that sort of jump out at you? It could be, the whatever playoff type stuff, or any other guys on the team that were characters.
Well, I got another story that, and this is a me and John Henry story.
Okay.
I didn't realize that this podcast could become a John Henry roast.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. This giant. Well, this kind of popped in my head when you started talking about retaliation type deal. It kind of this particular deal. This is like you get what you ask for type deal. Anyway, after practice one day.
Oh Jesus, this is true.
All right, let's hear it.
After practice one day, I got. Yeah, all right. They're supposed to be, we were doing, just some sprints, just trying to get ready to run and, just get ready for the next game, just a conditioning type deal. And this particular day, I was feeling pretty good, I was pretty decent as far as speed was concerned and all of that.
All right. And all right. Pause. I'm gonna give you an ad lib to the story beginning. So throughout the season, as you watch me on kickoff team, I'm the very first guy that comes down on the kickoff team, and out of all the fastest guys that we have on our team, and I would, like I said, I would be the first guy down there and beating guys by almost 5 yards, 4 yards, and this is pretty fast. So just got the acknowledgement of making the Pro Bowl alternate, I believe, that year, me and him would just kind of had some words. We both played tight end and whatnot. And I said, "Man, I could beat you any day. Carry on, Rod. Go ahead, continue with the story.
So I was like, I said, really? So he was like, yeah. So our strength coach just kind of hypes it up a little bit more, 'cause I guess he hears us going back and forth. Now, we were at the end of the practice.
Yes.
Most everybody else had walked off the field and everything. But I guess one or two TV cameras, catch us talking noise. And then the strength coach says, well, no, let's go. Let's pull it out on the field. So he walks us back out on the field. Just me and John Henry in the middle of the field. So now we got all the TV cameras. Everybody's pointing at us. But I still had no idea it was going to have this type of impact. So anyway, we lined up in race, and I ended up beating him in whatever this distance is that we ran. I'm not sure if it was 40, 50 yards.
40-yard dash.
40 yards. So after I beat him in that 40-yard dash, I raised my hand up at the end of it, talking noise, kind of like Ben Johnson when he
hand straight up in the air, and he ran straight to the locker room, just like this, just like this. So
now here's the funny part.
Yes,
this is the funniest part of the whole thing. So, I'm talking noise. A couple of reporters asked questions, things of nature, but we still had no idea. But, this is before, you had the, social media days. So we had no clue this was going to happen. So anyway, as we're pulling up at home, because I told you we carpooled together.
Yes.
So we're pulling up at home. And just as we get into the complex and at the house, he drops me off my house. And my wife comes out and says, what are y'all doing? I'm like, what? It's all on TV that y'all raced.
Yes. Yes.
We're like, what? So we're watching this on the news, like, oh my gosh! Now everybody making phone calls.
Yes, on the 5 o'clock news, Rod Lewis beat John Henry Mills. Oh, it was a big story. So I say all that just to add to it.
Tell them part.
Okay, so Rod's faster than John Henry Mills. Pro Bowl, this, that, and the other. How about this? I play L5 on the kickoff team. Who was R5 on the very next week? He was right beside
me. The very next week.
Oh, it was so funny because he didn't play special teams at all. That on kickoff, and they had him right next to me.
Right next to me. And I got to run down and go bust the wedge with him.
Exactly. He said, "Man, this is for the birds. Forget this." Oh, I made a big mistake. It was so funny. Oh man.
And here's a backstory. A real backstory. We're standing on the field right before the kickoff. And I'm like, man, what do I do?
Yeah, exactly.
He said, run as fast as you can. Keep your head on the swivel.
And keep your head on the swivel because you will get hit. Oh, that is too funny. I'm about to start crying. Go ahead.
No, that's great. It's I can only imagine what it was like back then. So that was probably like mid-'90s, I guess.
Yes, sir.
A couple years
into
the league.
94,
yes.
95. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Oh, cool. Hey, Rod, so every kid sort of dreams of, becoming an actor or a famous athlete or something like that. Was there a time where, you sort of was like, wow, I made it?
You know what? I did have a moment. I don't know if I've ever shared this with anybody, but it was, it was kind of surreal. I think it was my second year, and when I actually became a starter, and I wasn't a highly decorated player, but the fact that I was actually cracked the starting lineup, and I remember it was a TV timeout, and we was in the Astrodome, and when the cameras came back on, I was kind of looking around, and you can look at the screens that were in the ceiling, showing the TV cast, So as I looked up, they had the scoreboard down at the bottom and everything, and they just so happened to have the camera on our huddle. So as I'm standing there in the huddle, I'm like, that's me. Everybody's watching me right now. So I kind of had my hands on my hips. So quietly, I kind of just moved my hand and watched it move on the screen like, oh, this is live for real. So then I kind of moved my foot a little bit. I said, that is real live me. Just watching me. I said, so I am on TV, ladies and gentlemen.
That's awesome.
So meanwhile, this play's going on. And you're not really hearing what's going on, what you're discussing on the upcoming play. You're mesmerized with you being on TV.
Awesome.
Exactly. I'm just looking at, we're just in the huddle. No, the play hadn't started yet. We were waiting on our quarterback at the time. I think that would have been I think that probably was Chris Chandler at the time. Mm-hmm. We're waiting on him to come in and give the play and, start the play. But we kind of just were standing there. Now, just the fact that I was looking at it is, That's one of those I never forget in tight moments either.
That's awesome. So, Rod, out of all the veterans, and I know you said you connected with Chris Dishman and you connected with obviously with me and whatnot, and a couple other guys.
Right.
So, as far as like who would you say you looked up to the most? You know what I mean? As you maneuver through your entire career, you know what I mean, from seeing all the different guys.
Looked up the most as well. Boy, that's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe was
I
there
guess the
anybody
first
that took you under their wing when you got there?
Yes. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Well, when I first got there, that had to be Daryl Lewis because he and I went to college together.
Correct.
And he was Thorpe Award winner. He had come in high. I think he was a first round or second round in 1991. So when I got there, he and his wife, they both went to school with me. So they were, very, helpful in the off season, especially when I came in the first couple of days. I stayed with them at their home. It was real comforting. And then not only that, just to have somebody you knew and have a conversation with, versus just kind of getting thrown in the fire. That was number one. So Daryl Lewis, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Then I guess the other person that kind of somewhat took me under the wings, outside of little rookie hazing and everything, was Pat Carter.
Right.
Pat Carter they brought him in as a tight end as a veteran with the same year that I got drafted. And, we were the only true tight ends because that was during the era.
Besides me.
Besides you. Besides you. And they were, and we can go on for stories all along how they tried to not let you be a tight end, but
right. Definitely.
Yes, but therein lies the name skills.
Yeah,
but Pat Carter, myself, and John Henry, we were all in the tight end rooms together. So it was just it was a close knit group because it was something that was being forced upon the coaching staff at the time.
Mm-hmm.
The coaching staff still wanted to do the run and shoot. They had no real desire for a tight end, but I guess upper management said there will be a change. So that's kind of how we ended up in the NFL.
Exactly. And it gave us longevity as far as making the team because we knew it's not that we knew we weren't going to get cut, but we had for assurance that we were going to make the 53-man roster. And Pat Carter was definitely a veteran coming from the Rams, I believe. I will have him on the show one day.
Yes.
And just to really show us the rope and show us like what and don't get me wrong, Rod Lewis and Pat Carter were really true tight ends, over 6 feet tall. Wow, that's Joe Bowden calling in. He's probably waiting on the call. But anyway, we're going to wrap this thing up. Rod, go ahead. We're going to do player association with words and different guys. Just give us one word as far as what you think about that person, and just kind of just one word. So the first person to come to mind for me would be Warren Moon. One word. What would you say?
Warren Moon, true class act, true definition of a professional. Mm-hmm. Somebody that seemed larger than life. You growing up all your life listening to the TV cast, the shows, and watching the games, and all his accolades. Even to this day, when I meet him, he still seems like he's a mythical figure.
Right, like a Michael Jordan, you would say. Go ahead.
Yes,
Next one.
Oh yeah, next one for you. Steve McNair.
One word.
Steve McNair. One word.
Yes, sir.
That's hard. Fraternity brother.
That's right. Correct. Eddie George.
Beast.
I think I used the same word.
I think you did. All right. You mentioned him a little earlier. Bruce Matthews.
The man.
Good. Last one, you kind of briefly touched on him also, Chris Dishman.
Veteran.
Good.
Nice.
All right.
Cool. Well, that's going to do it. Rod, we really appreciate you being on this episode of Catching Up. It was great hearing your stories and catching up with you, find out what you've been up to lately.
All right,
So I
guys.
appreciate y'all guys having me on.
And thank you, Rod, man. And I will call you later, man, like usual. And thank you for coming on, being one of our first guests on the show. And look here, guys. Hey, next week, catching up, there'll be another one of our great athletes that are coming in to talk with us and give us some great insight and some great stories. We can't wait.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys.